The dining table smelled like roasted chicken and cinnamon candles. My sister's kids were running between chairs. My mother was laughing too loudly at something my brother-in-law said. Plates clinked, glasses tapped. It looked like one of those warm family nights people post online. Until my father cleared his throat. "Your sister's family always comes first," he said calmly. "You're always last. You understand that, right?" The room didn't react. My sister smiled into her wine glass. I felt every pair of eyes slide toward me, waiting to see if I'd argue, if I'd cry, if I'd make it uncomfortable. Instead, I nodded. "Good to know," I replied. The words tasted steady, almost polite. Have you ever noticed how people reveal the truth when they assume you won't do anything about it? I picked up my fork and finished my meal. No one realized that was the moment I stopped volunteering to be last. The next morning, I woke up at 6 like always. The house was quiet. My small apartment smelled faintly of coffee grounds from the night before. I stood at the kitchen counter, watching the kettle heat, replaying my father's words. "You're always last." He hadn't sounded cruel, just practical, like he was explaining seating arrangements. That was the part that stayed with me. For years, I had been the reliable one. When my sister needed help with daycare payments, I transferred money before she even asked twice. When her car broke down, I adjusted my budget and covered the repair. When my parents needed someone to drive them to appointments, I cleared my calendar. It wasn't forced. I offered, because I thought that was how love worked. You show up, you give, you prove your place. But at that dinner table, something shifted. I opened my banking app while the kettle hummed. My thumb hovered for a second. Then I created a separate savings account. Not dramatic, not secret, just separate. I labeled it simply, Future. It felt strange, almost disloyal. Have you ever felt guilty for protecting yourself? I didn't stop there. That week, when my sister texted asking if I could spot her for another school trip fee, I replied, "I'm not able to right now. No long explanation, no apology paragraph, just the truth." She sent back a short message. "Oh, okay," 2 words, but they carried surprise. My mother called that evening. "Your sister sounded upset," she said gently. "I'm sure she'll manage," I replied. Silence filled the space between us. Not angry, just unfamiliar. My father's voice came through faintly in the background, asking who she was talking to. "Remember," my mother added carefully, "family supports each other." I almost laughed at the timing. "I know," I said. "I'm learning that." After we hung up, I sat on my couch and stared at the wall across from me. The paint had a small crack near the ceiling. I had been meaning to fix it for months. Instead of thinking about them, I opened my laptop. I reviewed my retirement contributions. I adjusted my travel fund. I updated my will. Practical steps, quiet steps, no announcements. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. For the first time, I wasn't building my life around being the backup plan. I was building it around myself, and strangely, the more I stepped back, the more messages I began receiving. Not from gratitude, from expectation. The messages didn't come all at once. They came the way rain starts, light, almost polite. My sister sent a photo of her kids' school fundraiser brochure. "Thought you might want to contribute," she wrote. No question mark, just assumption. I stared at the screen while the hum of my office filled the background. Fluorescent lights, low printer noise, the smell of reheated lunch drifting from the break room. I typed back, "I'll pass this time." 3 dots appeared immediately. Oh. Money tight? I almost smiled at that. Money wasn't tight. For the first time, it was organized. "No," I replied, "just prioritizing differently." She didn't answer after that. But later that evening, my mother called again. "You've been distant," she said softly. Have I? I wondered. Or had I just stopped reaching first? "I'm busy," I said. "With what?" The question lingered longer than it should have, as if my time required explanation. "With my life," I answered gently. There was a pause. "Well," she continued carefully, "your sister has a lot on her plate. The kids, the mortgage, it's not the same for you. Not the same. Because I wasn't married. Because I didn't have children. Because my responsibilities were invisible. I remembered something from years ago. I had paid for our parents' anniversary dinner when my sister forgot. My father had thanked her for organizing it. I had stayed quiet then. How many small moments had I brushed aside because I didn't want to seem petty? Later that week, my brother-in-law called me directly. "We're refinancing," he said. "Could use a temporary loan to make things smoother." Temporary? Huh, that word again. "How temporary?" I asked. "A few months, maybe." I heard children shouting in the background, a television blaring. I imagined my savings account labeled future. "It's not a good time," I said. His tone cooled slightly. "Did something change?" "Yes, but I didn't explain." After the call, I sat in my car for a while before going inside my apartment. The steering wheel felt cool under my palms. The evening air was thick with the smell of rain. For the first time, I wasn't scrambling to fix their discomfort, and that unsettled them. Have you ever noticed how people grow uneasy when you stop being predictable? The real tension didn't begin with anger. It began with confusion, and confusion can turn sharp very quickly. The shift became visible in small ways. My sister stopped sending casual updates. No more random photos of the kids. No more just checking in messages. Communication turned practical, direct, almost transactional. My mother's tone changed, too. Less warmth, more correction. "You've been different lately," she said one afternoon while I was folding laundry. The dryer buzzed softly in the background, filling the silence between her sentences. "We don't want money to come between family." Money. That word again. Had it ever not been between us? I thought about every holiday where I arrived early to help cook, every envelope I slipped quietly onto the counter when bills were mentioned, every time I reassured them that I didn't mind. Maybe I had trained them to believe I would always absorb the extra weight. "I'm not putting money between us," I said calmly. "I'm just organizing mine." There was a long pause. "Well," she replied, "your sister is sensitive. She feels like you're pulling away." Pulling away. Or finally standing still. That night, I sat at my desk reviewing my monthly expenses. The numbers felt clear, clean, predictable. Unlike the emotional math I had been doing for years. Give more, expect less, stay grateful. The pattern wasn't dramatic. It was steady, and that made it harder to notice. I remembered something my father once said when we were teenagers. "In this family, we invest where it makes sense." At the time, I assumed he meant financially. Now I wondered if he meant emotionally. Have you ever realized you were never the investment, only the insurance policy? The next Sunday, I wasn't invited to dinner. No argument, no confrontation, just a group photo posted in the family chat afterward. Smiling faces, baked roast chicken on the table. My seat filled by one of the kids. No one mentioned it directly, but the message was clear. If I wasn't contributing, I wasn't essential. And that was when I understood something uncomfortable. They didn't miss me. They missed my utility. I didn't confront them about the dinner. I didn't ask why I wasn't invited. Instead, I cleaned my apartment that Sunday evening. The scent of lemon cleaner filled the air. I washed the dishes slowly, listening to the soft rhythm of water against ceramic. There's a strange peace in doing things for yourself. The following week, I booked a short solo trip. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet coastal town a few hours away. I had been postponing it for years, always telling myself I needed to help out first. I didn't tell anyone, not out of secrecy, out of independence. Have you ever noticed how silence can feel stronger than explanation? At work, I started staying later, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I enrolled in a certification course I had delayed for almost 3 years. It cost money. It required focus. It required me to prioritize myself, and I did. When my sister texted about another unexpected expense, I replied hours later instead of immediately. "I'm not available for that," I wrote. No guilt paragraph, no justification. She didn't respond, But 2 days later, my father called. "You're creating distance," he said. "I'm creating boundaries," I answered. He let out a slow breath, the kind he used when he believed he was being patient. "You're overreacting to one comment at dinner." One comment, as if decades could be reduced to a sentence. "It wasn't the comment," I said quietly. "It was the confirmation." Silence. I could almost hear him recalculating. "You've always been practical," he continued. "Your sister needs more support." Needs. That word held weight. I looked around my apartment. The framed photo from my last birthday sat on the shelf. I had organized it myself, paid for it myself, planned it myself. Who supported me? Not financially, emotionally. The answer felt clear. Have you ever realized you've been the dependable one for so long that no one notices when you start carrying yourself instead? The distance wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, deliberate, and it was about to be tested in a way none of us expected. The emergency came on a Tuesday morning. I was at my desk reviewing a project proposal when my phone began vibrating repeatedly. My mother, then my sister, then my father. 3 missed calls in less than 5 minutes. I stepped into the hallway to answer. "Where are you?" my mother asked, her voice thinner than usual. "At work. We need you." Not hello, not how are you. "What happened?" There was shuffling on the other end. My father took the phone. "Your brother-in-law's business account is frozen," he said flatly. "There's an investigation. They can't access funds. Mortgage payment is due, school fees, utilities." He listed them like items on a receipt. "And?" I asked quietly. "And we don't have enough liquidity," he continued. "This is temporary. We just need you to cover it until things settle." Cover it, the word echoed. "How much?" I asked. He named the number. It wasn't small. It wasn't a school trip fee or a car repair. It was most of what I had in the account labeled future. My sister's voice came through faintly in the background. "She has savings," she said. "She doesn't even have kids." There it was again, as if my life required less security because it was quieter. "I'm sorry this is happening," I said slowly, "but I'm not transferring that money." Silence. Not confusion this time, shock. "You're serious?" my father asked. "Yes. This is family," he said, sharper now. "And I am family too," I replied. The hallway felt colder than usual. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. My pulse stayed steady. My mother came back on the line. "We thought you'd understand." I did understand. I understood that in every previous crisis, I had stepped forward before being asked twice. I understood that my refusal felt like betrayal to them, but was protecting my future betrayal, or balance. "We'll figure something out," my father said finally. The call ended without goodbye. I stood there for a moment, phone still in my hand. For the first time, the emergency wasn't mine to solve, and that was the boundary they couldn't accept. After that call, the silence was louder than any argument could have been. No one texted. No one explained. For 3 days, the family group chat stayed inactive. The last message visible was my sister's photo from the previous weekend. Smiling children, filtered sunlight, normal life. I went back to my desk and finished my work. That evening, I transferred a small amount of money into my future account again. Not because I was celebrating, because I was reinforcing. Have you ever felt your backbone strengthen quietly? On Friday, my mother finally called. "We managed," she said, her voice measured. "Your sister's in-laws helped. They'll repay them when this clears." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "That's good," I said. There was something else in her tone now. Not anger, not warmth, assessment. "You've changed," she added. Maybe I had, or maybe I had just stopped overcompensating. "I hope everything works out," I replied. She waited, perhaps expecting guilt, an apology, an offer to reconsider. It didn't come. After we hung up, I sat by my window with a cup of tea. The city outside moved as it always did. Cars, distant laughter, a siren fading somewhere far away. Life didn't collapse because I said no. No one lost their home. No child went without food. The world adjusted. And for the first time, I wasn't the adjustment. Oh, have you ever noticed how quickly people find other solutions when you stop being the easiest one? The next family dinner invitation arrived a week later. Short, casual, as if nothing had happened. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Maybe I would go, but not as the safety net. I went to dinner. Not because I felt guilty, not because I wanted approval, but because I wanted to see what had shifted. The house looked the same, the porch light slightly dimmer than I remembered. My mother opened the door with a careful smile, the kind people use when they are measuring the temperature of a room. "You came," she said softly. "I was invited," I replied. Inside, the table was already set. My sister was arranging plates. She looked up briefly, then back down. No hug, no tension either, just awareness. We sat. The smell of baked pasta filled the kitchen. My father cleared his throat like he always did before speaking, but this time he didn't start with commentary. Dinner moved politely. Conversations about school projects, weather, gas prices, no mention of money, no mention of the emergency. But it was there, floating between us. At one point, my sister sighed dramatically while cutting her food. "It's been stressful," she said. "We didn't expect all that to happen." No one responded immediately. Then she added without looking at me, "Some people are lucky they don't have that kind of responsibility." The sentence was light, almost careless, but it was aimed. I placed my fork down slowly. "I have responsibility," I said calmly. "It just looks different." My father glanced at me. "And what responsibility is that?" he asked. "My future," I replied. The table went quiet. For years, I would have softened that statement, added humor, changed the subject. Not this time. "I spent a long time being available," I continued. "Financially, emotionally, practically. I don't regret helping, but I won't assume that role automatically anymore." My mother shifted in her seat. "We never forced you," she said gently. "You didn't have to," I answered. That was the truth. They hadn't demanded it. They had expected it. Expectation can be heavier than obligation. My sister finally looked at me directly. "So you're just done?" she asked. "Done being the backup plan," I said. Not angry, not raised, just clear. There was something unfamiliar in their expressions. Not outrage, uncertainty. My father leaned back in his chair. "You've always been independent," he said slowly. "Maybe we relied on that." It wasn't an apology, but it was closer than anything I had heard before. "For years I tried to earn my place," I said quietly. "At that dinner a few weeks ago, you told me I was last. I believed you." My mother's face softened. "That wasn't what we meant," she whispered. "It was what you said." Silence settled over the table. Have you ever noticed how truth doesn't need volume to land? No one argued. No one dismissed it. My sister looked down at her hands. "I didn't realize it felt that way," she admitted. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe it was easier not to. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm adjusting." That word seemed to ease something in the room. Adjusting felt less threatening than leaving. "I'll still show up," I continued, "but not automatically. Not financially by default, and not at the cost of my own plans." My father nodded slowly. "And if we need help again?" he asked. "You can ask," I said, "but I'll decide." Not based on guilt, not based on hierarchy, based on balance. Dinner resumed, quieter this time, but something had shifted. The power dynamic felt level. After dessert, my mother walked me to the door. "You seem stronger," she said softly. "I feel clearer," I replied. Driving home, I didn't replay the conversation the way I usually would. I didn't analyze every word. I didn't wonder if I had been too firm. I felt steady. Weeks passed. The emergency faded into memory. My sister's in-laws were repaid. Life returned to routine. But the tone had changed. When my sister needed help organizing something, she asked instead of assuming. When my parents invited me to dinner, it was with warmth, not expectation. And when money came up in conversation, it no longer hovered in my direction automatically. Have you ever set one boundary and realized it changes everything quietly? I kept building my future account. I completed my certification. I booked another solo trip. Not out of rebellion, out of alignment. One afternoon, my father called. Not to request, just to talk. We spoke about neutral things at first. Then he paused. "I didn't mean to make you feel last," he said. It was brief, almost awkward, but it was real. "I know," I replied. And for the first time, I meant that too. Growth doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like smaller expectations, like clearer communication. Like knowing you are not the emergency fund for other people's choices. I didn't separate my money to punish them. I separated it to protect myself. And in doing that, I separated my identity from their hierarchy. If this resonates with you, like the video and share your experience below. Sometimes the quietest shifts create the strongest foundations. I used to believe being last was my role. Now I understand something different. You can love your family and still choose yourself. This was not the end of our story. It was the beginning of a more balanced one. What would you have done in my place? Comment below.